fabulous news coming out of Egypt, and it's all about the labyrinth. You know, the labyrinth of Hawara. And I just by chance found out about it through Johanna James. Here's a few clips from what she had to say.
Guys, yesterday they have just announced a massive archaeological rescue mission to try and find the lost labyrinth of Egypt underneath Hawara Pyramid.
She goes on to say,
there has been multiple independent scans of different companies, different scanning methods, LiDAR, satellite, who have all found evidence that there is in fact a huge complex underneath this site. And the evidence was so convincing that it has now got full permission from the Egyptian authorities to start digging.
So if you don't know much about the labyrinth and you want to know a heap more about it, then let me tell you all about it. According to the Egyptologists, the labyrinth was a massive underground and overground complex, theoretically built around 1800 BC by the pharaoh Amenemhat III, and he did this next to his own pyramid at Hawara. But myself and many other independent researchers disagree with this timeline. I can't tell you all the theories they have, but I will share with you what I think. I believe that there was a very ancient structure in this location that goes deep underground. The dynastic Egyptians found it and one of the structures on the surface, and they turned that structure into a pyramid in order to preserve it. And they built an eco-skeleton around it, putting in filler between the ruined building and the pyramid, until there was a complete and beautiful pyramid in its place. The ruins above ground, which were in front of the pyramid, were restored or rebuilt, and the area accessed underground became a very useful storage facility for all the treasures that they found from the era of Zeptepi, i.e. the before times. And that's a whole subject in its own right. The dynastic Egyptians, in my opinion, treated all locations that they found from the time of Zeptepi with great reverence. They believed that by restoring and maintaining these structures, they would gain the favour of the gods. They also wanted to be buried next to these structures because they considered that they were structures of the gods and it would take them nearer to the gods upon death. The labyrinth itself was a very special place indeed, because on the surface it was like a fortress, and inside that fortress it was a very confusing labyrinth of rooms and walkways and passages, etc. Only the initiated ones knew their way through this maze of buildings, especially in order to get to the holiest of holies, but we'll come to that. It was so big that it was used as a centralized governing location. By that I mean that each of the nomes of Egypt had their own part of the structure, and they maintained a presence there to enable all the nomes to communicate easily with each other and work together for the common goals of Egypt, well, probably more specifically the pharaoh. In addition to the governing aspects of the building, it was also used for religious purposes. The area for religion was even more protected, and only the highest of the dynastic priests had access to this holy of holy and the underground world of this amazing location. That underground part has many levels, but the descriptions that pass to us from history do not describe how many levels it goes down. So I'm guessing that most of the levels were not discovered by the dynastic Egyptians and may still be intact. So I predict the level below ground will eventually be accessed, and the sorts of things that will be found will be massive granite and stone boxes, some incredible stone vessels, numerous statues, maybe a few other interesting things of a technological nature even. But anything of gold or other metals on that first level, underground, will be long gone, thanks to looters. But there will be plenty of interesting things from an archaeological perspective anyway. I also predict that if further scans are performed, especially SAR scans, it will be discovered that the structure goes down 17 stories. Well, at least. But these are just my ramblings. Let's look at what the evidence we have says. Let's start by talking about the size of this place. The surface complex measured approximately 385 metres by 158 metres. So the labyrinth itself covered about 28,000 metres squared, which is around 300,000 square feet. According to Flinders Petrie, the northern section included 9 shrines behind 27 east-west columns with 12 column courts divided by a long hall. How did we find out about this place is the next question, really. So we've got some historic records. Herodotus visited it in the 5th century BC. He claimed it surpassed even the pyramids, describing 12 roofed courts and approximately 3,000 chambers above and below ground. So then we've got Strabo, who linked the number of the sections of a palace to Egyptian districts. And then we have Diodorus Siculus, who noted its ingenious design and how it was navigationally difficult without a guide. Then Pliny the Elder, he described it as being built with beautiful stone. So all of these ancient accounts differ, and hence the grandeur of this edifice seems that it got written off as myth, as if they thought, well, this is overly exaggerated and these guys don't agree on anything, so let's just say it's a bit mythical. Maybe it did exist, but, it couldn't possibly have been as fabulous as that. So, yeah, I recommend that you check out the quotes and you can see what was said. Anyway, what happened to it? The labyrinth was essentially dismantled and the stone was quarried because it was really very beautiful. Very sad, though. Archaeologists have attempted to investigate the area, including the very famous Petrie, but little was found except a few statues and some blocks, possibly some foundation stones. But then, in 2008, everything changed. A Belgian-Egyptian expedition called Mataha conducted geophysical surveys suggesting an intact lower layer of the labyrinth below Petrie's ruins. So their findings became very controversial when the Egyptian authorities reportedly asked them not to communicate their results. But of course, eventually, it all came out. And we're going to have a look at the report that they wrote about it. We're going to also have a look at what some of the independent researchers have to say about the place. So let's start with that, because there's some really fun things that and observations that have been made. Let's start with one of my favourite alternative researchers, which is ancient architects.
The Lost Labyrinth is certainly one of the enigmas of ancient Egypt.
The Hawara pyramid site may appear unremarkable today, but to ancient historians, it was a place of awe and grandeur.
Like this was the labyrinth was this sort of 1,000-room structure that was supposedly just absolutely magnificent. You could have fit all of the temples of Karnak and Luxor and all of the temples of Egypt into its footprint.
The legendary Labyrinth of Egypt, which had long been mentioned in ancient texts. Herodotus had described it as a massive complex of 3,000 rooms, arranged in a maze-like formation, some above ground and others below. He was forbidden from entering the underground chambers. One of the most intriguing aspects of the labyrinth is its apparent age. The orientation of the structure, which is tilted by 20 to 25 degrees compared to the nearby Hawara pyramid, suggests that it may be much older than the pyramid itself. If this is true, it raises the possibility that the labyrinth predates the pharaohs and could be a relic of a much earlier civilization.
It said it contained memorials of the homeland of each of the kings. But they're in Egypt, they're in the homeland. Weird to say homeland, not like memorials of Egypt. Did they mean like Atlantis, or the Atlantean Empire?
So what did the project team have to say about the results of the project?
The team confirmed substantial archaeological features next to the ruined pyramid of Amenemhat III, covering a huge underground area and displaying the clear geophysical signature of vertical walls with an average thickness of several meters. Appearing at the depth of 8 to 12 meters, there is a grid structure of gigantic size made of a very high resistivity material, very similar to granite.
I think thanks to the independent researchers, it has been very eloquently summarised. But let's just quickly talk about the elephant in the room, which really wasn't discussed in the report. Kind of hinted at. But the age of this place. There are many people, independent researchers included, as you know from some of the quotes in this video, that believe that this goes back to a much earlier epoch. And from my perspective, that's true. I believe that this is from the time of Zep-Tepi and could be linked to Atlantis. And of course, that's where I get interested, very, very interested in this place, because I am of the opinion that some parts of Egypt were part of an earlier civilization, which the ancient Egyptians came across and made their own. And they did renovations. As for this structure, well, this structure, the cardinal direction of the pyramid is slightly different to the direction of the actual labyrinth. So that indicates that the structures were not built at the same time. When I visited the site of the labyrinth, there were a few things that jumped out at me. The first being the enormous size that the labyrinth covers. Even though, there's not much to see there, you can get a feel for how big this place was in the past. And the second is how much rubble there is. It very much looks like it has been quarried, so the topmost level is gone, and all that is left now is whatever is underneath the sand. So let's return now to what Johanna James had to say about the labyrinth.
There has been multiple independent scans of different companies, different scanning methods, LiDAR, satellite, who have all found evidence that there is in fact a huge complex underneath this site. So you can understand how phenomenally excited I am. This is the Pyramid of Hawara and the canal that runs alongside it. This is a little bit of the insane rat run of level. It's a true labyrinth. I can't even talk. I'm so excited. It goes down to potentially minus 100 meters. There are chambers in here that are huge, at 40 meters, 50 meters, 80 meters. Potentially this year, we could start finding parts of this lost labyrinth. I do want to shout out that it is the man, Louis de Cordier, who is the original guy who did the Matterhorn expedition in 2008. He is the one that has been bringing this project all together, finding the fundings, making the contacts. He is the reason why the labyrinth is going to be found. Please go and look at archaeologicalrescue.org/Hawara.
So let's hope they're not planning on keeping whatever they find to themselves, because what they could find down there, it sounds like it could be amazing. In the scans alone, they found what looked like a dome and also a large metal object, which could be a very large Shen ring. But let's just hope we get to know what's down there. In the 4 layers that they have clearly identified, they've also determined that only shallow parts of the labyrinth are flooded. And so that means that this place is actually explorable.